Hi there. So I'm often asked what a nutritionist really eats. So I thought I would share with you what a typical day for me is like, with a few confessionals in there as well. It's not all virtuous. So first thing in the morning, I start with a strong coffee. I actually make it on a stove. I prefer not to use the little plastic throwaways to reduce waste. I love the flavour. I don't depend on caffeine. I do tend to kind of turn off from caffeine about 2 in the afternoon, but I won't give up that lovely coffee first thing in the morning. It gives me that kind of lovely boost that I need. Thereafter, it is a bit more virtuous because I will almost always have a green smoothie, a couple of handfuls of baby spinach, about half a banana. I actually chop bananas into pieces and keep them in the freezer because I like them chilled, so it kind of just adds that extra lovely chill to a smoothie. I mix in a tablespoon of Beyond Greens just to get that mega dose of nutrients. Again, great way to set up the day. Sweeten it a little bit with honey or agave, and I tend to use a plant-based milk, so something like almond milk or a coconut milk drink. It's tasty enough that even my kids drink it, I promise you. Thereafter, which is about an hour and a half later, if I'm at home, I will tend to make myself something like a couple of poached eggs, sometimes on something like rye bread. The only two cereals that I have in the kitchen for me are natural porridge oats, which I have eaten since I was knee high to a grasshopper and love, and 100% whole grain quinoa. So I keep it really real. If I can't pronounce what it says in the label, I certainly won't be eating it for breakfast or any other time of the day, probably. So breakfast is really pretty good. I believe it does set you up for the day. If I'm out and about, I will make my breakfast choices wisely. Now, my life is a little bit chaotic. I have children, I run a business, I travel extensively. So the reason I put in a couple of juices here is that that's my fail safe. If I find a juice bar in London or New York or wherever it is I am, I will tend to have a green juice on the go as a bit of a snack. But one of the other things that's really important for me to weave into a day, if I can at all, is something that is really good for my gut. I'm a huge believer in gut health driving the rest of your health. So I will tend to nourish my gut with beneficial bacteria from things like kefir drinks, from bone broth used as a stock for soup, from even things like sauerkraut, and I will take a good multi-strain probiotic when and if I need it. So big fan of that. Um, I'm what I call pegan, so kind of paleo blended with vegan. So I'm not wholly plant based, but the largest part of my diet will be made up of plants, but with some well chosen protein. So whether that's something like smoked salmon, whether it's something eating out in a restaurant, if it's something red meat, then I will make sure as much as I can that it's grass fed. I do spend a lot of time down the Mediterranean, which is lovely, and I eat my fish and seafood down there. But in terms of the fridge staples, I actually really do like tofu. It's not everyone's favourite choice, but you can get it in that nice smoke flavour now. Chopping it up, putting it in a salad just to boost the protein content. Really simple and easy. My kind of rule is like I need 15 minutes to make a meal, not much more. I do make a lot of soup. I actually tend to make soup in the morning, or at least start making soup in the morning. So I'll fry off an onion and kind of get to stage 1 or 2 so that when I come in the evening, it really just takes 15 minutes maximum. So I've always got a soup on the go. As I said, I use a good quality stock as a way to kind of blend with that. Sometimes put in a little bit of soya cream or something like that at the end just to make it a little bit tastier. But whatever the season is, I really mix it up, and I'm not so much a cookbook cook. I just go with what feels right, and kind of make it up as I go along. Um, During the day, I will snack on things like nut butter, just fruit. I've got sort of nuts and seeds here. These are little snack balls. Occasionally, I will spend a bit of time and batch cook them, maybe once or twice a month, and maybe do sort of 10 or 15 at a time, put some in the freezer. Yes, of course, there is some things like dark chocolate in there from time to time. Usually in the fridge, I'll just keep a nice packet of dark chocolate buttons or some raw chocolate, and just have a couple of bits here and there when I really need it. We all know how that feels. Big fan, as I said, of plants, putting plants first. So things like rocket and parmesan salad is again so easy to ask for in any kind of restaurant, or spinach salad in a restaurant. And at home, I probably go through probably a small bag of spinach and a small bag of rocket every single day. I'm a big fan also of getting enough of the right fats in the diet, the essential fatty acids. So in addition to those nuts and seeds and things like oily fish, I will drizzle Udo's Choice. So that's the blend of omega-3, 6 and 9 in the right proportions, which is the kind of hardest thing to get. And this stays literally in the fridge all the time. My kids take it off the spoon in the morning, so I get that into them. I tend to just drizzle it over whatever I've made at lunch or dinner, just to kind of add that in. So real kind of good variety. My nutrient density can come from things like juices and smoothies, nut butters, places that you can get those micronutrients, so the zincs and the seleniums that you can't get that easily in other foods. I do things like chia puddings and whatnot as well, love them. I just don't have any left. And then in the evening, I would say after a nice dinner, sometimes it's nice to have a little treat. I have got a wine glass here. It is empty. It's not always empty. I would say I would have maybe 2 glasses of wine a week is typical. That's the amount that I often tell other people. You can have that and it's not really going to have any negative impact on your health, or it's not going to impact on weight and things like that. But it is a bit of an individual equation. Yes, it's much less than perhaps the official recommendation, but I tend to think that so much else comes with that in terms of what you eat and how you feel, that it's just, for me personally, it's not worth it. What I do like though is that sense of the time of the day when it's a little bit more about adult time. So I tend to keep a large pack of mini tonic waters and add interesting things like bitters to it, or herbs to it, or sometimes an alcohol-free gin to it, just to have something that is an adult drink in the evening. I've also put in here things like matcha, I use turmeric, I make a lot of hot drinks. I tend to just drink hot drinks all day long, starting from the morning with coffee and ending something like a turmeric drink in the evening. I find myself continually having meetings in coffee shops, which is kind of the way it is for most people these days, or a lot of people these days. So that's kind of part of my big nutritional intake and calorie intake probably, is a lot of these drinks. So apart from chocolate, what would be my go-to treat? Genuinely something like a kind of natural coconut yogurt. I'm a big fan of, so something rich and creamy. I'm not into the super sweet and certainly not processed food. Maybe a little bit of cheese and biscuits as well, every now and then with a glass of red wine. So, bit of a confession, it's almost all good. I certainly have no desire to be any healthier than I currently am, and it's all about making sure that you have all your bases covered, your essential fats, your plants, your greens, your protein. I do have carbs in my diet, as you can see, but they're well chosen carbs, and then focus on those little things that you really love, just to make sure your diet is enjoyable. That would be my recommendation to you, because that's certainly how I live. So that's my share.